So today we have hearing continuation on budget recommendations for Larned and Osawatomie State Mental Health Hospitals. Before we move forward, are there any questions or anything like that since Scott is here? I did have one, maybe unusual, but yesterday we talked about the governor more or less lapsing unfunded, unfilled vacancies. Explain how that affects the budget at all, or if it does.
Scott Bruner, Deputy Secretary with ks. So when an unfunded position is removed, our count of available positions in the state personnel system goes down by that number. The positions, we have the ability to decide which ones are funded so that if it became vacant, we would post it and we don't have to go ask for funding to fill that position when we find a candidate. So when you eliminate those positions from our count and they're not funded, it really doesn't have much of an impact other than it drops our overall number, which then sometimes can cascade through things like when you calculate a vacancy rate or a turnover rate, the denominator is different by that count. And for example, on our Bethel Oversight Committee slides, we show a trend of vacancy rates over time. That has a little blip on the line when that adjustment happened because the denominator changed, so the percentage is a little bit different. But other than me pointing it out, I don't think you'd notice it in the overall
Monetary effect on the budget at all,
or operational. No, I don't. Okay. Not really. If we ever had a need to staff up significantly and we had to add positions, we have the ability to do that through the budget process and through the governor's process as well.
Thank you for that explanation. I just needed to get that solidified in my pea-sized brain.
Oh, not at all. It's complicated, so no, I'm thanks for asking.
While the director is up there, are there any other quick questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So let's move on to the recommendations for the Larned and Osawatomie State Mental Health Hospitals. Is there discussion on the budget and or recommendations? Representative Clifford.
I'm going to recommend an amendment, but I thought maybe we should have a motion before I do that, or if you'd like, I can just jump right into that.
Yeah.
Okay. For fiscal year 25, and I mixed up my pages here, I would like to amend the governor's budget, and in the budget I'm on page 13, and I would like to add back the not recommended primary medical care staff for Larned State Hospital in the amount of $326.454, all SGF. And I'm offering in that same amendment a pay for, and I'll have to look for the page, to eliminate the recommendation for 6 additional environmental services staff in the amount of $315.670, all SGF. I'm sorry I don't have the page in the budget.
The primary medical care staff was not recommended by the governor, is that right?
Correct, and I'm recommending we add that back.
Put that back in.
Put that back in, and as the pay for, I recommend eliminating the environmental staff. And I'd be happy to discuss that if someone would offer a second.
Okay. Yes, Representative Carpenter. $315,670,000. Yeah, I get it. Okay. Dayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dayton Lamonian, Legislative Research. If you look on page 14, item 8 is the primary medical care staff, $326,454. If you're looking at the table on page 14. Of the budget analysis, yes.
And then
And then item 11 would be,
one was the environmental services.
that's right.
Okay. So she did not, the governor did not recommend the primary medical care staff, but she did recommend the environmental service staff. Okay. All right. Are we clear on that? Yes, Representative Ruiz.
I just want to be clear. We are taking away the funding for the environmental services staff and giving it to the primary medical care staff.
It's not dollar for dollar, but yes, yeah.
Yes.
That's the.
Close enough.
Representative Clifford.
Yes, that's exactly correct. I'm trying to create a pay-for that's roughly equivalent in state general fund dollars.
All right. Representative Barth.
Just quick clarification in point on there. I had crossed out number 6, which I think you're trying to, I think that was not recommended by the governor. I think you can't use that as a pay-go is what I'm saying. I think that she did not recommend that, so it's not available.
He wants to add that item 8 back in and eliminate the item 11, which was recommended by the governor. It was not.
Yes.
No, below it,
I
it
have
says
it
the governor
canceled out
recommends
because
adoption of this
my notes.
request. Okay. Committee discussion. Representative Ballard?
That's correct. Because we need to take care of an aging population in this facility, and that is a primary medical provider that will be right in there in active patient care. I don't think picking up the trash and cutting the lawns are a priority when we have limited resources over, because patient care should take priority.
Okay, to summarize the Clifford recommendation, we would be deleting item 7 for the LHS or LSH environmental services staff. And then you would be adding, let's see, that was item 11, and then adding number 8 back in for the primary medical care staff. Does that summarize your?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I didn't discuss that ahead of time with you, but again, I think the emphasis with limited resources should be on patient care.
Representative Ballard.
That's correct.
Representative Clifford.
Well, with all due respect, again, I think the focus should be on caring for the patients there. I'd ask management to be creative in finding people who can stock supplies, take out trash. And I think getting a hire for medical care is something that should be our priority.
Okay, committee, you've heard the motion by Representative Clifford. Do we have a second?
I have a question.
Represented by, second by Representative Carpenter. Representative Ballard. Oh. Okay, Representative Ruiz.
Can we have the secretary, can we ask questions
I think so.
regarding this? Scott, what does this do to the environmental services?
So at Larned, I think right now, Superintendent Dinkle mentioned yesterday, there's only two people on the groundskeeping crew for the campus. For ice storm, snow removal, all the things that are mentioned in the description, there's two people to do that work, so it can stack up. And it's quite a large campus to maintain, so that's why the request is there for two additional people. The other four were for in our sexual predator treatment facility buildings where we had been using residents, their labor to do that kind of work, and that's not possible anymore with the security profile that we're at. So it's just to kind of backfill some of those positions that otherwise would have been roles that would have been served by residents that were providing that service.
Thank you for that clarification.
Representative Ballard.
I understand the need for personal care, but on the other hand, if you have your facilities not being taken, people can't get around, they can't do it along those lines. I would actually be more in favor of, if the fact that it isn't, why don't you just leave 11 where it is and put the funding in for 8? I mean, because one, you know there's a shortage, there's only 2 people doing that work, and they're in totally different categories. So I'm not arguing which is more important. I'm just saying that in this case, you know you're short, you only have 2, but yet you do have to maintain grounds and the safety, and because of what they say here, there's security concerns, you can't really use the people you were using before to do it. If it's that important, instead of switching it out, why not make that addition to see that the primary care gets what it needs to, since this area is very short?
Mr. Chairman, I would gladly withdraw that second part of the motion, if the seconder would follow me on that and let you all duke it out in appropriations.
Yes, Representative Carpenter.
So Scott, why can't you use residents now, and you used residents in the past?
A couple of reasons. The profile of SPTP residents we have today, they're either too infirm to work, so then the pool that we can draw from that could participate in our vocational programs are smaller. And then there are some of those individuals that can't be in other buildings, so they're limited where they can work. And just the mix of that makes it hard to manage and supervise the whole patient mix on the SPTP side. So the kind of I think the analysis was it's easier, we ought to just staff this ourselves instead of hiring somebody to supervise a resident to clean a building when they can only work in a certain area for a certain amount of time.
It says, is at Larned.
At Larned, yes.
So you have 286 people that are too infirm to?
Not all of them, but there's enough of a mix that where they can't be around other residents, or they can't move from one building to another for some security reason. So it just limits the ability to have residents do the cleaning tasks where they need to be completed.
So do you use ankle monitors or anything like that when these folks are out of the building?
That I'm not sure about, Representative. There would be very few folks in the inpatient program that would be allowed to move around the buildings without an escort. So I don't think we use ankle monitors typically because everybody's supervised.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott, are the individuals that were doing it in the past, were they paid to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what they were being paid?
I think it's a prevailing minimum wage, but we can check and get that back for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is the second agreeable to? Okay. All right. Further discussion on the Clifford recommendation? Seeing none, do you want to close, Representative?
I close my motion.
Okay, you've heard the Clifford motion to reinstate the funding, $326,454 for primary medical care staff. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no? Okay, that is approved. Are there other recommendations on the state mental health hospitals, that budget for 24 and 25? Yes, I would entertain a motion to approve that budget as amended. Okay. Yeah, turn your mic on. Yes, discussion on the motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, we will consider that budget passed. Thank you, committee, for that. So today we have a hearing on the budget for Parsons and K&I state hospitals. And to start that off, we're going to have our legislative research analyst, Dayton. Welcome to committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Dayton Lemunion, Fiscal Analyst, Legislative Research. You should have a budget analysis document in front of you titled State Institutions for Intellectual Disabilities. And I would like to begin on page 6. Subsequent to the 2023 session, one adjustment was made to the $67.9 million, including $35.9 million SGF that was appropriated to the State Institutions for Intellectual Disabilities for fiscal year 2024. This adjustment changes the approved amount without any action required, and that was an SGF reappropriation of $361,000. The agencies request a revised estimate of $74.1 million, including $41.4 million SGF and 956.7 FTE positions. This is an increase of $5.9 million above the approved amount. This is an all funds increase of 8.6% and SGF increase of 14.2%. The reason for the change is due to 3 enhancements as well as another adjustment. So if we look at item 2, you see $432,000 approximately for the pay plan shortfall addition. Again, this would implement the pay plan that was approved by last year's legislature. Item 3 is an enhancement request for 7 FTE positions and $590,000 SGF. The agency requests 7 positions to restructure their cottage management team. Currently, there's a 60% vacancy rate for the program coordinator position. The new positions would not require a 4-year college degree, which the agency has, and this would be easier for the agency to fill. The next position, or the next request, is for 7 FTE positions and $228,000 SGF. This would expand the dual diagnosis and treatment and training services program. These individuals travel throughout the state to train parents, to serve Kansans with IDD in the community. Currently, the program has a wait list of 51 individuals. The expansion would increase the number served by 40. And then item 5, you see the addition for the 24/7 pay plan. Similar to the mental health hospitals that you heard yesterday, this is a transfer from KDADS in the current year. The governor's recommendation is a decrease of $818,000, including $700,000 SGF, and this is due to the governor not recommending the enhancement requests. And I'm happy to stand for questions on 24.
Any questions for Dayton? Representative Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on that, the number 3, the PSH cottage management restructure, I'm a little confused. I assume if we have these 7 positions and restructuring, the 13 positions of which 60% vacancy rate exists, the math equals 7.8 positions. So those 7.8 to me cancel out the additional 7. So why is there extra money needed? I don't quite understand that. It says new positions, but I assume the 13 times 0.6 would go away. So explain.
Are you asking about Mr. Chair, Representative, are you asking about the funding or the FTE position count specifically?
Both. It's connected,
Okay.
so I'm asking about both, yes.
So it could be that the vacancy rate is built into their shrinkage. I'd have to look to confirm whether they've already accounted for that vacancy rate. Typically, when agencies submit their budget, they do account for a level of vacancies. As for the FTE positions, that would be an increase over the FTE positions since there's not a deletion of the existing positions that are vacant.
There is not. So, okay, well, I can ask the agency. It just reads like you would be trading 7.8 for 7, but maybe we can answer that as we go along today.
They might have more insight.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, other questions for Dayton? I'm a little confused on the FTEs myself. It shows that they start the year with 927.7, and then one request is to add 14, one request is to add 15. And it shows that the governor disallowed those requests. Maybe it's in line item 6. I'm not sure I get those 15 FTEs.
Yes, so the addition beyond the 14 that are requested in the enhancement are discussed in item 6. There are a number of positions that were added. The Department of Administration authorized the addition of some of those, transitioning 6 of those 6 temporary positions to regular FTE positions, as well as new positions in the Maintenance and Outreach Services Department. As for more specifics on that, I'd have to defer to the agency. But this was in their request, and it was approved by the Department of Administration.
All right, committee, other questions on 24? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to turn to page 9 now for the fiscal year 2025 analysis. For 2025, the agencies request $70.7 million, including $37.5 million SGF and 956.7 FTE positions. This is a decrease of $3.4 million, including a decrease of $3.9 million SGF below the request for the previous year. The request includes $1.2 million, including approximately $1 million SGF for the following enhancement requests. These are the same enhancement requests that were requested in the current year. Except these amounts reflect 1 full year's cost to staff those positions. And skipping down to the governor's recommendation is a decrease of $437,000. This is due to partial adoption of the enhancement requests. And if you turn to page 11, you can get a better view of the changes between the agency and governor. So looking at item 4 and 5 on that page, for item 4, the cottage management restructure in fiscal year 2025, the governor recommended funding half of those positions, but not adding the FTE to the FTE count. And for the next item, the DDT&TS outreach services, the governor recommends adding the funding, but not the FTE positions. And I'm happy to stand for questions on 25.
Committee, questions for Dayton on fiscal year 25? Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to get the rationale here. So we're going to add 350, but no positions. I'll ask the agency, I'd have to see, are there vacancies within the agency?
The agencies do have vacancies. Parsons has 14.6% vacancy rate. And both of those requests are for Parsons.
Okay.
So that would require them to use their existing FTE count to convert some vacant positions. So that would address Representative Clifford's concerns of double counting the FTE for the cottage management restructure.
That's not good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Dayton? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Next, we'll call Scott Brunner, Deputy Secretary of Hospitals. Scott, welcome to committee once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Brunner with ks. I won't speak as long as I did yesterday to introduce the hospitals, or try not to. I did provide, and I should have had more presence of mind when you called me up before to answer some questions about the mental health hospitals. We took the questions that you asked us yesterday and provided some follow-up information about our total number of positions and filled positions, a little clarification about the boot and shoe allowance and the timing of that. And then you had a good discussion about mobile competency and the number of competency evaluations that were being performed by community mental health centers and kind of that dynamic. So and then about the state institutional alternative hospital program. So that's available for you as well. I apologize for not bringing it up when you were discussing those budgets. But your item today is our two facilities that serve individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And Dayton did a good job describing the background, so I won't go into too much detail or any detail about that at all. The introductory slides have similar information that we talked about yesterday with the total number of budgeted beds and our average census on each campus here in Topeka at the Kansas Neurological Institute and at Parsons State Hospital. Positions, our turnover and vacancy rate on slide 5. You can read through all of those things, and again, they're items that Dayton talked about. The last item in the slides, at least, that I wanted to point out was what I mentioned yesterday in terms of some overall budget adds that are in the KDAD's budget that impact these two state hospitals like they impact the mental health hospitals. So in the governor's budget recommendation, there are some adjustments in the pay plan where that money is appropriated to KDAD's and we'll distribute it to the hospitals, but that's a 5% pay increase for all state employees. Setting market rates for employees that make less than $15 an hour, bring them up to that $15 an hour level, and then making the 24/7 pay plan differentials, the first 3 of those differential payments permanent in staff wages for the next, or for fiscal year starting in July. Those are important considerations. We've talked a lot about hiring and filling positions, and moving on the salaries will help, we think, with that. And then we did talk a little bit yesterday about the shoe and boot allowance, which isn't as much of an impact at Parsons and KNI, but there could be some staff that are benefited from that $250 allowance that's been negotiated in the labor agreement. I'm going to have Dr. Mike Dixon come up. You'll have fewer transitions today. We've got one superintendent filling a couple of different roles. Mike's the permanent superintendent at Parsons and the acting superintendent at KNI. It has been for the last 4 or 5 months or so. He always has at least 2 hats and sometimes 3, so I lose track. But he does a lot for the campuses. He's brought a lot of stability to both campuses as well. And I didn't really take the personal privilege to kind of call out the superintendents that we have, that I have the pleasure of working with. Dr. Dinkle, Superintendent Byram at Osawatomie, and Dr. Dixon are just tremendous individuals. They have really hard jobs, but they love what they do. They dedicate themselves to the folks that they serve and the teams that they have built on each of their campuses. And I'm really proud to be helping them through that process of advocating for resources and having these conversations with all of you. But they do the hard work every day, and I certainly wanted to acknowledge that yesterday and acknowledge it again today. But with that, I'm not going to ask for questions because that took a little while yesterday, and I'd rather have you hear from Dr. Dixon. But I'll be available for questions at the appropriate time. So I'll turn the mic over to Dr. Mike Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Before I start, could I direct Representative Clifford's question about the cottage restructuring? We're having a really hard time at Parsons filling the program coordinator's position, and due to our licensing, we have to have somebody with a 4-year degree specific to human services. So right now we have a 60% vacancy rate in it. So we're wanting to keep those 10 positions. They have to be over the active treatment programs on each cottage. So we want to add an additional 9 positions for an assistant for them, with hopefully we take things off their plate, make them solely responsible for the active treatment programs and put the supervision on these new positions that we want to create. We're real concerned that we have such a large vacancy because we are required by KDHE to have degreed people in these roles. So it is an addition of, we're not swapping out the positions, we're adding it.
Doctor, is the requirement to have the baccalaureate, is that in statute or is that regulation?
It's one of our ICF guidelines, so my guess is it's statute, but it's definitely a regulation. It's part of our conditions of participation, and we've received a tag on it in the past for not having somebody over the active treatment plan. So we have a handful of people right now, the 4 remaining ones that are covering, and our program directors who are properly licensed and have the degree, overseeing all those treatment plans. So it's definitely not ideal right now. We're hoping the creation of these 9 positions will solve that problem for us.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm Mike Dixon. I'm currently the acting superintendent at Kansas Neurological Institute. K&I provides long-term care options for our most vulnerable Kansans. It includes support in all aspects of daily living, as well as medical support for those requiring long-term medical care, all while providing the highest quality of life. Slide 12, there's 124 individuals right now living at K&I, and they live over 19 different homes. 84% are characterized in the severe to profound level of intellectual disability. 22, and the next numbers are really staggering. If you add up the last 3 bullets, almost 60% of them have lived at K&I over 30 years. 33% have lived there over 50 years. Slide 13, we have lots of health care needs at K&I. 61% are unable to walk, 87% unable to speak, 65% have epilepsy, 31% have a diagnosis of autism, 40% with osteoporosis, 36.3% have an altered diet, either a soft diet or a puree diet, 35% receive all their nutrition through feeding tubes, almost 10% have a trach to breathe, and 40% have severe respiratory issues requiring multiple breathing treatments throughout the day. K&I's values to Kansas, like I said, we're a statewide resource providing comprehensive care for individuals with the most severe intellectual disabilities, the most medically fragile. We also administer the federal foster grandparents program for the whole Topeka area. That uses federal grants to provide opportunities for local seniors to come in and interact with our individuals. We provide lots of different services to the community, such as wheelchair support, dental, medical, and we even do some behavioral outreach at K&I. Slide 15. We're in the process right now of trying to accomplish some new things, implement different processes to increase services. We're doing several initiatives right now. We're looking at trauma-informed care and how that can benefit the individuals who live there and our staff. Different training objectives we're looking at. We're looking at implementing non-crisis intervention, which is a way of de-escalating people when they're upset. Our special events at K&I, we're trying to do a lot more of those currently, such as holiday decorating, Christmas adoptions, staff appreciation banquets, firefighter party, and other different things to increase the quality of life for our staff that work there. have been working on different efforts for staff appreciation and retention. We brought recently food trucks on campus for staff, evening movie nights, outdoor on a big screen, K&I picnic and carnival for staff, residents, and their families, multiple dance parties for K&I residents, Royal Valley Drumline performance, firefighter Christmas party, breakfast for the night shift. All the administrative staff came in and cooked it and served it. Employee appreciation, time or eat, food for everybody. Caught in the Act is a new initiative we're trying. Just staff can email everybody and say, this is what I saw somebody doing that's great. Halloween parties and home Christmas gift deliveries. We do have a much higher vacancy rate than we'd like to have. We would like it a lot lower, so we're looking at different recruitment and retention efforts. We've done a lot of career fairs, hiring events. We've been to tech schools, universities, the radio, Step Up, mobile workplace bus that tours around. We've been advertising different places, our state website, Indeed, Handshake, college sites, Facebook. We have a lot of curbside signage. If you've been by K&I recently, you've seen a lot of help wanted signs out there, and JAG presentations at the local high school. We're in the process of improving the internal culture at K&I. We've established a lot of WIGs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with WIGs, but it's the Franklin Covey process of change. WIG stands for Wildly Important Goal. We're using that to transform different aspects of the hospital. We have a recruitment WIG. We have a WIG that looks at how medication's delivered. We want to make sure that we're delivering medications well. We're increasing our training and support for staff, increased responsiveness and follow-up to reported issues. We're lots of emphasis now in our HR, making sure that anything that's going on the units, we're making sure that HR is investigating and that there's follow-up. And then also, as I've said before, there's an increased focus on employee recognition. We just established a recognition committee. We're getting ready to do the Employee of the Quarter ceremony, a years of service ceremony, and I've mentioned the other ones, Caught in the Act, giveaways, promotional things. And then our Facebook page, we're trying to expand that as well. Slide 18 is all of our community partnerships. I won't read them all, but as you see, there's a pretty good list. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Truman. Even though you did not explain it, when you say your partners, what kind of partnerships do you have with all of these people?
So a lot of it is, for instance, the fire department. They might bring gifts in for the individuals who live there. Harvester's food distribution, we do that on campus. United Way fundraising. All these people we have some type of relationship with. It may just be we let them use our campus for different things, or we partner with them and they come in and provide services for our individuals. Christmas shows, treats at Halloween, just trying to be a part of the community.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Truman.
Committee, are there other questions at this point? Seeing none, proceed.
Parsons State Hospital. We currently have 151 individuals and we have 9 residential units currently. We have 1 cottage that's under renovation that we hope will be open by the end of the year. The age at Parsons, our youngest is 11, our oldest is 76. We have 10 under the age of 18, and we have 17 that are currently in school. We contract with Greenbush, and we have a school on campus. 35% of the individuals at Parsons are characterized in the severe to profound range, 39% are in the moderate range, and 26 are in the mild range. Approximately 50% of PSH individuals require some type of intensive specialized medical care. 21 It goes back to 2015. It's the number of individuals admitted and discharged by calendar year. We do have a pretty open door. You know, we try to discharge as many people as we admit each year. It has slowed down. You look for 2023, we only discharged 6 individuals. And I'm not sure really what bless you. I'm not sure what the reason for the decrease is. I will say as I'm going to talk more about, over the past several years, the people that we've admitted have had more aberrant and extreme behaviors. Slide 22, 91% of our individuals are duly diagnosed, meaning they don't only have an IDD diagnosis, but they also have a mental health diagnosis. And 79% of our population meet the criteria for serious mental health condition. Slide 23, from January of last year to December 31st, 88% of our individuals engaged in some type of physical aggression, 71 destroyed property, and 68 engaged in self-injury. Slide 24, currently, and this number fluctuates actually fairly frequently. It's based on what behaviors they're presenting at the time, but as of today, 88% of our individuals are on some type of increased supervision. 9% are on one-on-one, which means that staff that is assigned to them comes out of the count. So if there's 5 people working on the cottage and we have person on one-on-one, there's only 4 people to deal with the rest of the individuals. 1 person is assigned only to that individual. And 54% require their own bedroom. 25 is going back to the last 11 years, the percentage of admissions that had some type of police involvement before admission. Our current agency initiatives on slide 26, we started trauma-informed care several years ago, but we can continue to expand that. Nonviolent crisis intervention, which we're getting ready to implement at K&I. We're well into that at Parsons. Our healthy sexual behavior program. We also have, I know Dr. Dinkle yesterday talked some about SPTP. We have a reintegration facility on campus as well that we manage. Our outreach services that we're requesting additional positions for. Our short-term behavior stabilization unit. Our vocational services. We have a really active adult self-advocacy group. And then, of course, our research center and Kansas University Center on Developmental Disabilities is also housed at Parsons. 27, with our trauma-informed care, staff learn the importance of building a resilient trauma-informed care culture. It's about providing compassionate services and supports. Since the individuals we serve have an increased risk for trauma, the more informed and aware of the effects of trauma has on us, the better supports we can provide. Nonviolent crisis intervention. Also, a lot of times when you hear this, you also hear it referred to as CPI, crisis prevention intervention. And we teach the class with the advanced physical skills. It is used to build an effective culture of safety within our organization. The focus of the program is to build on the knowledge as well as the skills needed to recognize and manage crisis behaviors that may be encountered at PSH. Our outreach services, it provides on-site delivery of psychological and behavioral analytic services to individuals, as well as training parents and families and school staff and community service providers. Of those that we have done consults on, less than 3% have required admission to PSH for treatment over the last 3 fiscal years. In fiscal year 2023, outreach served a total of 148 individuals ranging from 5 to 56 years old, 83 being new consults, and 65 receiving follow-up services carried over from the previous fiscal year. Currently, we have a wait list of 84 people, of which 7 are currently on hold due to inpatient status, such as incarceration or waiting for a transition to occur. That 84 people translates to about 4 or 5 months before we can get a consultant out to do the consultation. Slide 29 is a graph of just their consults for 22 and 23, new consults. They get a bunch. Our short-term behavior stabilization unit, as of January of 2024, we've been able to hire the director, the assistant director, as well as 5 program consultants who have either obtained or in the process of obtaining certification as a registered behavior technician. We do require the staff for that unit to have additional training in behavior analytics to work with the population that they serve. We've divided it into 3 different phases. We're currently into phase 2, which they're working with an individual on another one of our cottages currently and doing an in-depth behavior analysis on him. Phase 3 will be implemented once we have hired enough staff to open the unit completely. We are budgeted for 13, but so far we've only been able to hire 5. If we can get a couple more hired, we're going to open it with a limited amount of individuals bringing in, but we're having a really hard time filling the positions. We're really proud of our vocational services at Parsons. We have a variety of paid employment opportunities across the campus. They do start out at minimum wage for all jobs on campus. Currently, 81% of our individuals participate in some type of vocational training. The thing that we've changed, maybe even since I presented last year, is we're partnering more and more with manufacturers in Parsons. Ruskin's is a big factory in Parsons. We do a lot of work for them, and also Johnson Controls. So the first 2, the Metal Edge and the Hood, are both Voc sites that have sprung out of work that we get from those. And they love our individuals. You know, they can bring the stuff to campus. They do a great job. They throw parties. They come out and do parties for them at Christmas time because they want just as many of our individuals as possible to help them out. Laser designs. We offer custom items such as trophies, plaques, as well as a variety of other things. We have a greenhouse on campus that's really very productive. We make dog bones that are very healthy for your dogs. So we have a furniture shop. They make furniture. We have a cafe. It's called the Canteen. We have a horse barn and a riding arena. We currently have, how many horses? 19, 29?
I think we have
19. We just had to put one down, actually. But we have a lot of horses. We have an equine support program that we have a therapy pony that goes out to the different cottages. LBJ deliveries, we have people that will go from the ad building to take stuff to the cottages or from cottage to cottage to deliver stuff. Screen printing, which they print different types of T-shirts. And then our packaging, shredding, and pre-prep vocational areas, they prep a lot of stuff for the hospital, and they do an awful lot of shredding. I talked a little bit about our advocacy group. It's called STAND, which stands for Support, Teamwork, Advocacy, Now, and Determined. It has a president, a vice president, a treasurer, and secretary. They all govern themselves. And they do quite a bit of things on campus, such as dental in-services. They go around to the different cottages and really encourage the other individuals that lives there to take better care of their teeth. They assist with training. We have an individual assigned that works for our staff training department. They go out on the units and they do respect checklists. They do observations and see how respectful the staff are being to not just the individuals, but to each other. We have a PSH cemetery that many, many, many years ago, I believe they buried individuals there. They adopted that recently and redid the whole thing. And then they do an annual stand barbecue that raises quite a bit of money. that they make donations to different charities, but they also like to have parties. So they will use that money to fund dances and things like that. Our affiliation with the University of Kansas on slide 34, we have a respite service program that provides some services for people who live in the community who have behavioral issues, a payee program for individuals that need somebody to pay their bills, do their taxes, a coordinated resource support services, and then we also have the Kansas Equipment Exchange at Parsons and TAP, which is the Telecommunications Access Program. As with the other hospitals, we would like our vacancy rate lower. We do quite a bit of recruitment through job fairs, hiring events. We go to local colleges, local high schools, the workforce bus that I mentioned with K&I. We post every place you can possibly post on the state site, Indeed, Facebooks, bulletin boards at colleges, radio advertising, flyers. We have a lot of curbside advertisement at Parsons also, presentations to certain groups. If we're short on social workers, we'll go to colleges and talk to the different departments. We've had different open houses. We try to host as many practicum students as we can. And then we work through our Chamber of Commerce to get the word out that we're hiring. As I talked about WIGs with the K&I presentation, we do that at Parsons. We have for many, many years, but we use the WIG process to increase staff satisfaction and work life balance. We are still focused on employee recognition and everything that I said with K&I. We're doing at Parsons the Employee of the Quarter, years of service, employee recognition, standout awards, giveaways, or PSH different promotional items, and then promoting events, of course, on our PSH Facebook page. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Committee questions? Representative Ballard.
I'm looking at all of the, especially the services that you offer that are available. So that, do they get to choose where they go, or how do they decide how they're going to be working in these particular areas?
They do. We do it just, we do interviews. So if we have a position open at one of the Voc sites, they will interview for it. Some Voc sites are really competitive, and there are just so many different openings at them. So some of it's pretty competitive.
How is the money used that they earn?
So they spend it how they want to. We do we teach budgeting, and they do pay a certain amount to room and board to live there. It's a very small amount. I believe it's $30 a month, but the rest of it, the teams work with them to teach them how to budget. So when they leave Parsons State Hospital, they'll know how to budget their money. But they have some pretty nice stuff. You go to the individuals who work quite a bit have really nice beds, really nice dressers, TVs, karaoke systems. You know, they spend their money. Plus they go on a lot of trips. You know, it's not uncommon for them to go to a concert. They've went to Chiefs games, ski trips. They have the money, so.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you know how much the hourly salary is?
So it's minimum wage.
Okay.
Do we have anybody, Melanie, that's not? It's $750. Yes, $750.
Thank you.
Committee, other questions? Representative Carpenter.
Mike, thanks for being here. Good to see you again.
See you.
So I asked this question, maybe you'll have the answers today, Scott. I'm disappointed that you didn't have the answers to the question I always ask. But so at K&I, you've got authorized positions. How many are filled?
I do have that information, just not on me. Kelly, do you know if, I can get it, I have
Okay.
it. I can tell you exactly what the number is, I just didn't bring it.
Same way.
Same
It
thing.
would be nice. And just to digress a little bit for why I asked for this. So just in quick, we got the numbers today from yesterday of the vacant positions. And so, and this is a rough figure, but there's 186 vacant positions in Osawatomie. If you figure that's 40 grand a year for that person, that's $7.5 million in shrinkage that they use to pay overtime for the rest of the year for the folks that they don't have. So that's $7.5 million, and then 40,000, and that's a wild guess, quite frankly. And then at 368 positions are vacant at Larned, and that's $4.7 million. So that's what they use to pay all this overtime and all that kind of stuff. Just FYI, that's why I always ask that question.
Other questions, committee?
Yes, I'd like to back up a little bit.
Yes, Representative Ballard.
They do. So they have a greenhouse. They want to expand it, of course, but they have flowers. They have a thrift shop. Yeah. They have a canteen also. I apologize, I didn't put a slide in with all the Voc stuff at K&I.
The reason why I asked that question is because of, when we've gone out for tours, we kind of look at them, and it's so much pride in what they do, because it's like they're running their shop, they're earning money, and they make beautiful floral arrangements. They have other plants that you can buy. I want to know about the dog bones.
So that's at Parsons.
That's at Parsons.
We've done it for quite a while. What do you want to know?
How do you get them?
We make them. Do we have a recipe?
No, how do you
Oh,
get them?
I can, email me. I can.
Well, you're talking about, I assume they're healthy and everything.
They are.
Yeah, I would much rather be giving it to Parsons than just buying them at a store or someplace.
Everybody that comes to a tour at Parsons, they're return customers. We ship them dog bones for a long time because they just keep getting them. Their dogs apparently love them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, other questions? Mike, I wanted to clarify something on the 84 individuals on the wait list.
Yes.
I wanted to clarify in my mind, is that because of bed space, or is that because of the staff getting out and?
So that 84 is for our outreach program. So it's,
Evaluation.
yes, for us going out and doing the behavior modification eval and putting recommendations in place. That's why we're asking for the additional positions for outreach, so we can get that wait list cut down.
Very good.
I guess I do have another one.
Representative Ballard.
The enrollment, taking new people. There was a time that we kind of put a moratorium on accepting new people into KNI, unless the community did not offer those services that KNI provides. Have we accepted any new people this year?
We have, and we have 2 more that's coming in the next 2 months. So we've accepted 2 additional ones that will be coming. We do not have a moratorium on admissions. So we have brought people in, but we have 2 scheduled in the next 2 months that we'll bring in.
That because they weren't.
They can't be served.
Communities
Yeah.
or anything like that?
They can't be served in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Committee, other questions? Representative Clifford. Okay.
Something for me, I drove around out there trying to find the administrative office, but it's a bewildering series of buildings. And I wanted to tour, I would like to in the future. Where is the
It's
headquarters?
Wheatland. It doesn't say administration building, it says Wheatland on it. So we're putting together a 3-year plan for KNI, 3 to 5 year plan. We're doing some strategic planning, and one of the things that the staff brought up that they want to see change is our signage at KNI. So very good observation and something that we're going to address, but Wheatland is the building that you're looking for.
call ahead.
The flagpole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
It's where the flagpole is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
There
Chairman.
is a huge Wheatland sign, but if you didn't know that Wheatland was the administration building, you would never stop there. So,
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you may not, but do you have like a white paper on the dual diagnosis and treatment program?
Oh.
Because I saw in one of the deals, it was identifying ID and DD folks. So is that different than a CDDO that's the gatekeeper for, I mean, is this duplication of services?
it's not. The people that we employ, I don't think I don't know how, we have a specific expertise with behavior analytics at Parsons State Hospital. We always have. It's what we're known for. So the staff on our outreach program are the best there are when it comes to behavior management. I don't think any services within the CDDO, I don't know. Actually, I think I'm speaking out of turn.
More information, it seems like you're identifying the same people that CDDOs are identifying. And I'm just curious as to how you come about identifying those folks in communities.
How we get the referrals? It comes from the CDDO. A lot of times the CDDO will contact us with the referral, but most times the MCOs contact us sometimes because they have somebody that's really difficult to manage. So we'll send out the team to try to get a behavior plan in place. We go in for 3 to 5 days. We put the behavior plan in and we step back out. They do come back and do follow-up to see how things are going and answer questions. But we get referrals from parents, from schools, from mental health centers, from and there has been a gap in services historically because these individuals do have IDD. So it's not some place that would get into OSH or LSH. So
They have a ton of behavioral.
they have a ton of behavioral issues and they have psychiatric diagnoses.
I get it. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Committee, other questions? Mike, did you have anything additional to add, or are we at the, okay. I see no further questions, so thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Next on the agenda, we have Joan Kelly, who is the President, K&I Parent Guardian. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Mason and members of the committee. Thank you for the honor to speak before the committee on behalf of those who cannot speak or defend themselves. I'll just give a brief background about my husband, my handsome husband who's with me here today. We raised our grandson in the community. He has profound autism. He's extremely strong. He functions cognitively at the infant-toddler level, but he's been well cared for at the Kansas Neurological Institute for the last 15 years, and he's there for a reason. Adults with profound autism routinely exhibit severe, unpredictable behaviors that are not managed easily or well in scattered settings. They require 24/7 supervision and a well-trained support team to manage dangerous behaviors when they occur, particularly unexpectedly. So these extreme complex conditions in this subset of the population are often marginalized by people who insist that community is ideal for everyone, and if there was enough money, everybody could be served in the community. So I would just respectfully ask committee members to think about this. Would you prefer to have a major medical procedure done in your home and have itinerant nurses come to your home and equipment brought in, or do you appreciate the shared resources of hospitals for your care? Recently, a related committee, the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee, was informed that the average CBS cost was about $53,000 per person per year. So when you would compare that, or when people compare that to cost per person at, say, K&I, it can create some ire amongst people that may not be familiar with the other aspects of why that's the case. Due diligence, though, would reveal that this cost claim does not include housing, on-site medical staff, therapists, dental care, levels of severity, risk analyses, and among other things. The monetary cost focus by this committee and others is commendable and needed, but when it happens at the expense of the lives of those in scattered settings, surely we must take note. What's more striking to me over the years of my advocacy work, and I do work at the state and the national level, and I'm very familiar with the prevailing narrative and the grant funding that affects policies from the national level on down. So if this sounds like more of a defense that is not necessarily related simply to making a money decision here today, it is a defense. Because I think we need to keep in mind that there are many facets that affect what you hear and what you believe in these committees. And I've had the great privilege of working with a number of you on different committees over the years, and I appreciate that. What's more striking to me, though, is the number of six-figure income that are siphoned off annually by providers, CEOs, and upper management salaries. I took the liberty this year to include excerpts from the 2016 Myers and Stauffer wage rate study. I did this to just make clear that the way it was constructed ended up proving to be an extraordinary waste of taxpayer money. It was geared to, allegedly, to address the wage issue in the community, but because of the way the advisory committee joined with the state agency, it was an utter failure, and the Myers and Stauffers made that very clear in their statements. Because I'm very aware of the prevailing narrative that there is an amazing assault and push to close facilities nationwide, and I just thank God, literally, you guys, that we have an administration and people on board here that is not currently an immediate threat, but as Senator Ballard and others know, it has certainly been a threat in years past. So because there are so many fingers of threats and the prevailing narrative and ideology, I have to briefly speak about one of those today, and that is the Department of Justice, who still on their website insists that they have an integration mandate. So they claim Olmstead, but they actually misinterpret the majority and concurring opinions in the Olmstead decision. If anybody would read it, they would find that to be the case. I happen to dig deep because I have to protect my grandson and others like him. But the DOJ website also defies its own regulation, which I've quoted and included below. There are a number of inclusion policy advocates, and I've listened to many of them give testimony before various committees here and with national organizations I've worked with. And I can tell you that when they disparage places like KNI, especially because it's so costly, sadly, I'm keenly aware of the fact that their hidden goal is often to create a pervasive, misguided ideology in attempts to sway funding away from settings our loved ones require. And I experienced this firsthand when I served on the Kansas DD Council for several years. There's also been an alarming increase of improper settings when facilities like KNI are closed across the nation. Please forgive me if I seem sidetracked. I feel like we need to be reminded of these things so that you can put this in your back pocket, so that if there's a threat to KNI in the future, you will know, you'll just have some further background knowledge about why that's the case. Time doesn't really permit any review of, what's happening. I'm aware of it because I work with families all over the country in many states, and it brings me to tears to hear about what's happened to these kids when they close facilities, for example, in Oregon, but other states. And I think the committee would agree that retrofitted emergency rooms are costly and jails are inappropriate substitutes for a Medicaid-approved ICF. Although Medicaid law requires that there be given a choice of either institutional or HCBS care, that's in federal law, and our state plan, any state that has a waiver program has to include assurances to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid that they are offering the choice. of either institutional or community-based care. So in case you did not know this, our KDED's gatekeeping policy creates artificially higher costs because they actually forbid admission until families prove, by some arbitrary definition of proof, that families have exhausted every community options before they are ever given the choice of application to an intermediate care facility like KNI. And we actually went through this ourselves before Aiden was admitted to KNI in 2008, so this is a long-standing issue. I also work with families in crisis in the community, and I can tell you from their standpoint that these types of impositions through the gatekeeping policies are very cruel impositions on families in crisis. You know, because of the prevailing narrative and the misapplication of federal law, you know, including the Department of Justice, which ignores clarifications, the majority and concurring opinions, I will just quote one from the Olmstead decision that says that there is no requirement that community-based treatment be imposed on patients who do not desire it. I was surprised recently to find out that the Center for Disease Control finally acknowledged that there is a staggering explosion of people with autism. And that is being reflected, as Mike mentioned, there's new admissions to KNI, and some of them are these younger individuals like my grandson who have profound autism, so that the landscape of care at KNI is actually changing from the medically complex to the more behavioral dangerous population. And believe me, our hearts break that we can't cure our grandson from his condition, but we're so grateful for KNI. The people that speak before various committees, and I'm about ready to finish up. I appreciate your patience, just a couple more minutes. That, you know, you have to have research and data, and many lobbyists and different agency representatives speak before various committees. And one that's heavily relied upon in many states is national core indicators. I've heard it mentioned here at various committees. And, but you should know that national core indicators does not really have any safety data. They ask one question, that is, do you feel safe? Now, I think everybody already knows that if you're nonverbal and you're profoundly cognitively impaired, that you're not going to be able to explain whether or not you feel safe. So I find it deeply troubling that there's such a reliance on this data collection agency by our state when they actually exclude concrete data of sentinel events, mortality rates, transfer trauma, and the like. Before I conclude, I would just like to ask you that the next time experts request $1 million for a waitlist study or a wage rate study, please ask them if any of them have any firsthand experience providing actual 24/7 care. And please forgive me for being so blunt, but if any of them have ever once in their life ever wiped the behind of a severely helpless individual, and if they have, you might want to ask them if it might change their perception on how they would collect data for our most fragile citizens. In conclusion, Aiden was raised in our home since he was 2 years old. We invested our lives and our money to create an optimal, successful environment for him. He lives now at the KNI campus along with, the most medically fragile, complex individuals, and they all require well-trained and well-paid support team because their health and their safety depends on it. I am so grateful for the current administration that understands the need for KNI, and the staff there must understand the nuances of this fragile population. But I would just respectfully ask the committee, how can we ensure that the staff there engaged in the most difficult work on a daily basis adhere to over 200 pages, in case you didn't know, of federal oversight guidance under Appendix J, unless incentive wages are paid to the direct care and the nursing staff. If it's not allocated by this body, how can we expect the safety of such individuals? So therefore, I respectfully would request that this committee recommend full funding, including adequate incremental wage increases for K&I direct support and nursing staff that are sufficient to attract and retain quality employees. Without it, we can expect a further erosion of our ability to carry out the safety requirements under Appendix J in federal law. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joan. Committee questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Thank you so much. Committee, I would direct your attention to 3 pieces of written testimony in your folder. So review that as you can. And we will have our continuation of this hearing tomorrow where we'll make recommendations. And then we do have one more hearing tomorrow. So if nothing else, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.